Hey y'all, it's Katie and welcome back to my channel. If you missed my last video, I'm pregnant, woo! So with that, I'm starting a mini series documenting my journey through my first time pregnancy as an athlete. And this is our very first episode in that series where I'm gonna share with you guys my first trimester wrap up. So let's get going. Right now, I'm 13 weeks pregnant and loving this second trimester energy I just got. It's been amazing, honestly, because the last couple months have been a little bit on the rough side. It feels like I've been smacked with wave after wave after wave of symptoms that have started to affect my training, and I had to adapt quite a lot of things. So that's what we're gonna talk about in this episode, my first trimester and how I was able to deal with the symptoms through my training. So an obvious disclaimer here is that this is just my experience that I'm sharing with you guys. If you are a first-time pregnant athlete, maybe this will give you some insight and maybe this will make you feel like you're not alone out there, because that's what I wanted. I wanted to find somebody else out there who is experiencing things similar to what I was gonna go through. This is for you guys, if that's you, but this is not a blanket recommendation. So always, always, always go back to your doctor and listen to what they have to say first and foremost, because their word is law. So I've made sure that all of my training and all the events that I plan to do have all been cleared by my doctor, and I've been following their strict guidelines as I go. So make sure that you're doing the same thing and following what your doctor says. So we found out we were pregnant the day before New Year's Eve 2023, and basically all of 2024 I have been pregnant. So my entire training, January through February, has all had to change and shift according to all the symptoms that I've been experiencing. So some of the symptoms only happened early first trimester, some of them changed and developed as I went. So first off, I'm just gonna take you through my symptoms and what I've gone through, because I feel like I've almost hit every symptom in the book, at least once. So some of the first symptoms I started experiencing from January onward has been peeing all the time. I feel like I have to pee like 1,000 times a day, which is fine, it's the hormones, whatever. And then the other one is constipation and bloating. I had no clue those were even pregnancy symptoms when I first got pregnant. So that one really threw me for a loop because I had no clue what to expect on that front. But I think the biggest one that hit me in January, and it only lasted about 3 or 4 weeks, thank goodness, was food aversions. That one was a huge deal for me because I didn't want to eat literally anything for a couple weeks. And then for whatever reason, it clicked, and the only thing I wanted was potatoes. Mashed potatoes, baked potatoes, French fries, hash browns, like whatever that potato was, I wanted it right now. And that's like the only food that my stomach was comfortable with. Everything else would be just disgusting to me to eat. It wouldn't make me nauseous or anything. If anything, not eating would make me nauseous. I just had zero enjoyment for anything else. Even like pizza, I normally really enjoy pizza, and that's like a once a week food item for us. But I could not eat pizza whatsoever. It was just like not in the books. So that was just a really hard time for me trying to find foods that I could actually stomach and eat. Especially hitting my protein goals was kind of out of the question. And even some folks at the gym asked if I was on a cut because apparently I was starting to lean out, which wasn't a good thing. So I was just falling behind on my normal nutrient intake and not eating enough calories, and you know, that really affected my training because I didn't have proper fuel to fuel that training. So that was one big thing in January that I had to deal with. And surprisingly, everyone has been asking me, oh my gosh, are you nauseous? How has your nausea been? But I really haven't had that much nausea at all. I only threw up one time, and there was a stomach bug going around our town at that point, so it could have been a stomach bug combined with some nausea. I don't know if it was strictly pregnancy in that case because Matt was also nauseous too, so that was weird. But really the only nausea I'd really experienced was if I didn't eat when I normally did. So during a normal snack time or during a normal meal time, if that was late, then I would feel a little nauseous, just my stomach prompting me, hey, you need to eat something now. So that was the only time I ever felt nauseous, but February, I didn't really feel nauseous at all. So that was a really great smooth sailing time for the stomach. But aside from food and digestion issues, the biggest one for me was also tiredness, fatigue, and insomnia. Because it felt like all the time I just needed so much sleep in a day. I was sleeping 10 or 11 hours a night. going to bed an hour or two early every night, and then waking up a little late every morning, and taking naps throughout the day if I needed it, if I didn't get that full night's sleep. And then it was also weird because I also had this little case of insomnia too, where I'd wake up 2 or 3 times a night and I just could not go back to sleep, which is not me at all. Normally I am a dead sleeper and I sleep so soundly, like nothing can wake me up, which is honestly amazing and I really miss. And of course I was having to wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom too, so that was also, you know, once or twice a night anyway, but then I just couldn't go back to sleep when I got back to bed. So that was a really big issue because I needed that sleep really, really badly in that first, you know, month or two. I think the thing that affected me the most in my training along those lines was the fatigue. So no matter what the workout was, if it was weights or if it was running or if it was just cardio machines at the gym, it felt like if my normal fatigue after a workout was a 1.0, then my fatigue levels now would be like a 1.3 or a 1.5. So it felt like my fatigue was compounding afterwards, and my body just needed so much more recovery than normal. So that was a really weird thing, especially January, my first month, and then a little bit in the February as well. And aside from those bigger ones, I've had other little symptoms along the road, like heartburn. I've had, you know, a really stuffy nose off and on, random intense bouts of hunger that just come out of nowhere. So I've had to carry snacks in my car, in my purse, like all over the house, just everywhere, all the snacks. So I feel like I've experienced almost all of the pregnancy symptoms for the first trimester. Some of them were just super mild and chill. Other ones really hit me and steamrolled me in my training. So it was just trying to roll with the punches and adapt as I went. So speaking of training, in order to understand how I changed my training to adapt for pregnancy, I feel like you have to know what I was doing beforehand. So before pregnancy, I was doing 4 days a week in the weight room, and then I was also doing between 4 and 5 hours of cardio, which was a mix of running and cardio machines in the gym every week. My running, I am still a fairly new runner. I walked away from it for about 4 years after college, and now I'm back to it, but I had only built up my mileage to around 10 to 11 miles a week. So I've been trying to maintain that 10 or 11, and I'm not gonna add to it over pregnancy. So I'm just gonna maintain that 10 or 11 as far into pregnancy as I can, as my doctor allows. That's where I am right now. So I understand that's low in the running world and probably not where most hybrid athletes are in their running, but that's where I am currently. And then throughout the week, I would usually accumulate around 2 hours of yoga, stretching, and foam rolling. And then once a month, I have an hour monthly massage. So that is always my absolute favorite. I love it. And my massage therapist does prenatal massages, so I can still keep going to her. Woo! So now that you know what I was doing, here's what happened during my first trimester. So with all those symptoms and everything, I realized that I couldn't maintain what I was doing at the same volume and intensity. So I tried to keep the same volume that I was doing, but just reduce intensity across the board because of all the fatigue, the tiredness, all the issues, especially with losing my appetite and things like that, not getting the calories that I needed to support the intensity of activity I was doing before. I had to reel back my intensity. So I tried to keep 80 to 100% of my normal volume, and I let that fluctuate because definitely my number one mantra in the first trimester was listen to my body. And I think that's gonna be my mantra throughout the entire pregnancy, obviously, because as my body is changing, it's gonna change daily, and I need to be listening to it every single day as I train. So every workout, every set, every mile, you know, I need to be listening to what I need to do to adjust for that. So anyway, back to what I was saying. Anyway, so back to decreasing intensity. So that meant that in the weight room, I had to decrease whatever resistance I was using. As far as running went, that meant that I kept my same mileage, but my pace decreased, so my heart rate would decrease, and I took things a little easier. The cardio machines at the gym, the ergs and the air bike and all that jazz, I just reduced pace, and I would reduce heart rate, a lot of zone 2 work, which was honestly where most of my cardio was in the first month especially. But some days I actually could hit the intensities that I wanted to. Some days I was able to do some interval training and things like that, but those were only on like the really good days. On the bad days, I really had to reel things back. You know, some days that meant that I just skipped a couple sets of an exercise. If one was specifically bothering me, I would just skip it altogether. Or on some days, that just meant completely skipping a workout. And if you know me at all, that is not my personality. I don't skip workouts. I think it's totally fine to skip a workout here and there. I think that's very healthy, actually. I'm just very much a perfectionist, especially in my own fitness. And so for me to skip a workout is pretty rare. And I knew that, especially I can pinpoint 2 or 3 weeks in my first trimester that were just so hard. And I skipped 2 or 3 workouts that week, you know, and that just happens, especially, you know, when your body's going through all this stuff and dealing with all these new symptoms and you just don't feel like it and your body says no. You have to listen to your body in that circumstance. So that's what I was doing. Yeah, I didn't hit my full volume. I wanted those weeks, but that's also why I gave myself that range of hitting 80 to 100% of my normal volume, because I wanted to give myself that wiggle room to be able to step out when I needed to. So that was giving myself some grace in those situations, allowing myself to step back when I needed to really listen to my body and tune in to what it needed that day with those workouts. So earlier when I was talking about my symptoms, I mentioned that my fatigue levels had changed a little bit and that my normal fatigue was way different during pregnancy versus before. And that just meant that I also, during my training, I had to really hone in on recovery. So I really prioritized light stretching and foam rolling, good hydration, which I honestly still fail at. I need to drink more water. My husband gets on me all the time for that one. So that's still a work in progress. Making sure I hit those protein goals. I have been able to hit those protein goals recently, which has been so nice. You know, making sure that I have those good recovery habits in place, and sleeping all that extra time as well was super helpful to rest the muscles, rest my body, and let it, you know, recover fully before my next session. So that was a super helpful point too, because when I was feeling all that fatigue and all that tiredness, I just let my body sleep and I let my body rest. I let my body recover the way it needed to. So I've mentioned a couple times, I'm an athlete, but what have I been training for? So it turns out that before I found out I was pregnant, I had already signed up for several events. And I have events on the calendar all the way through June, which is gonna be right at the beginning of my 3rd trimester. So those still have yet to be cleared by my doctor, but I'm gonna be going step by step with her throughout that process. So hopefully I'll still be able to attend the event in June, we'll see. But for now, at the end of my 1st trimester, I was able to run in a Deka Strong and a Deka Mile event at my gym. So that was super nice to be able to get a couple events on the leaderboard for this year and get some times out there, because I know later on in my pregnancy, I might have some limitations, especially when it comes to things like the sit-up in Deka. I won't be able to do that after a certain point. So that's why I kind of wanted to rip the Band-Aid off early in the season and get both of them done. That's some things that I was able to clear with my doctor early on, and I was able to compete in those 2 events last weekend, which went amazing. And that Deka event just ended up being the perfect cherry on top of my 1st trimester, the perfect way to end and celebrate the 1st trimester, because literally like 2 days before my Deka Strong, I got this wave of energy and all my symptoms started going away and I felt amazing. So it was absolute perfect timing on that part, like praise the Lord, because it was awesome. And it was honestly a really validating thing as well, because getting that personal best on my mile was like just so relieving, because that whole 1st trimester, I was literally like, all of these workouts are so bad, I feel terrible, my training is just going in the garbage, like what's happening? And to have that validation in the time, you know, I got a personal best at the end of my 1st trimester, and it was like, totally blew my mind. I was not expecting it whatsoever. So that was a huge deal for me, and just, you know, validating the idea that yes, my body is under a lot of stress right now, and you've been doing what you needed to do to listen to it, to recover, and now you have energy, and now we're rewarding you for doing that. So I loved it, and I thought it was just such a fun time. And now I'm looking ahead to my very first run in Hyrox in March, so that'll be super fun. I'll be 15 weeks at that point, so it's literally like 2 weeks away. Ah! I'm getting so excited and kind of nervous for it at this point, but I've been training for this for literally like 3 or 4 months now, so I think I'll be ready for it. It's just, you know, we'll see what happens. And yes, my doctor has cleared me for it, so I'm all good in that department. And I have all this new energy now, so I can't wait to see what I can do with all this new energy at the race. Oh, it's gonna be so much fun. Plus, I'll be vlogging it for you guys, so if you ever watch one of my event vlogs, I'll be taking you guys along with me. And that just about wraps up my first trimester experience. But before I go, I definitely cannot forget, my husband has been absolutely and utterly fantastically amazing throughout this entire 2 months of us knowing and dealing with symptoms. He has been so caring and so compassionate and so loving and so just amazing in general. He is the real MVP here, because without his support, I definitely could not have done any of the training that I wanted to do this first trimester. Anyway, he's the real MVP here, so thank you. And now that wraps up our video. So I will see you guys in the next one. Stay healthy. Bye.